The 1966 Schwinn Slick Chick is done, and this bike is not going to be for sale. It's going into storage or into the collection, which you can see how well the sales program is working, because it's going to be a present for my granddaughter. But she has to grow into it, so it's going to be a year or two before that happens. Careful observers will note that in the finale, all of a sudden the chain guard graphics looked a lot better, as did the dart on the fork and the Schwinn logo on the crossbar. That's because I went ahead and because this was going to be a present for that special little girl, I decided to buy some reproduction decals. You'll also note, if you were looking carefully, that a lot of the scratches, in fact almost all the scratches, are gone. And that's because the paint touch-up kits that I had gotten in the Schwinn Honeyhole episode, one of those kits, the paint was still good, and one of the little jars was sky blue, which is this color. So I touched up all of the scratches. So that of course means it's time for a new season and a new bike. That's what's happening on this episode of Featherstone Bicycles. Project for season 10 is a Schwinn Hollywood 1965 in white with rose accents. The bike is complete. It has a few little extras. There's some kind of a light there, some other little object, and a reflector, and I think that's a peg that you put on BMX bikes to stand on the back, but Lord only knows what it's doing on this bike. Anyway, if you are a longtime viewer, and I mean really long, like I'm going to go all the way back to season 1, episode 1, when I did an inordinate amount of talking in the beginning of the video, I explained my process for rejuvenation, and one of the things I said was that I don't call them restorations because I consider a restoration to be a full paint job, but for various reasons, mainly due to the fact that Schwinn did not release paint codes for their colors, and the fact that repainting a bike decreases its value, I don't repaint bikes. However, this bike has a lot of paint damage. Also, the wheels, this will be the first time in this YouTube channel that I do a project where I have painted wheels, and you can see the rust damage on there. So I can get that rust off, but it will end up being black where the rust was. So that's not going to be good. And there's a lot of paint damage on the rear fender. There's a couple dents which I can take care of. So I am going to break precedent, and I am going to repaint this bike, which will of course mean that I need to also get new decals. One of the other reasons that I decided to repaint the bike was that the decals here on the crossbar are, while they're not peeling, they have faded so much that no amount of the process that I usually do will make that look good. And also you can see there's some damage to the paint there, and rust developed. So that's what I've decided to do. I did run into a little bit of a problem in that the source that I have for reproduction decals just went out of business. They sold all their decals to someone else. So hopefully in the process of going through this rejuvenation and fixing up all the other parts, I can source them from the new person, or if worse comes to worse, and that's not doable, I have another source. The only problem I have, and it's not a huge one, is that the seat post decal that says Schwinn and Chicago quality is, I don't know if this should come out on the video. You can see the outer edge of it is serrated. And Schwinn had two different styles depending on what era we're talking about. That's either, that outer edge is either a straight, solid line, or it's this serrated type. My original source for these decals has the serrated style in rows. The new source that I found on eBay does not, so not a huge deal. But I do like to keep it as complete to original as possible. One of the questions you may be asking yourself is, well, painting the frame will be fairly straightforward, as will the chain guard, although the paint code thing is not a problem in this case because it's white. So how hard could this be to match? And even if it's just reasonably close, it's going to be what I consider good enough. The tricky bit is going to be finding that color of rose. So may have to do a little digging for that. The other thing you may be asking yourself is, boy, it's okay to paint the fender white, but how are you going to do those pinstripes? Well, it turns out that in that source that I had for the decals, a long time ago, I had another project that never ended up getting done, but I had bought a pinstriping kit, which I have here. So I'm going to be using that for the pinstriping of the fenders. However, what about the pinstriping on the wheels? So as it turns out, from that other older project, which is hanging on the wall here, I had that whole bike sandblasted as I did the painted wheels, and then I had the wheels powder coated. So, and of course they are the same size wheels, and they are perfectly white and never going to rust. So what I'm going to do is use another set of, not decals, but stencils that I got from that other source that does the decals, that are specifically for putting the pinstripe on the painted wheels. So that's the plan. Never done anything like this before, so we'll see how it goes. I'm assuming I'm going to have to do a lot of research into putting that pinstripe on the wheel, and Schwinn did, I think it's either a black or a navy blue stripe on those painted wheels. Since I'm going to be painting parts of the bike rose, I might as well do that as well on the pinstripe on the wheels. But I'm assuming that I'm going to have to rough up the area where the stripe is, or put an etching primer on there, because I don't think that paint would adhere very long to the powder coated surface. So before I get a lot of nasty comments about too much talking and not enough doing, let's get into taking this bike apart. Take a short break here to show you that as measured from the top of the seat post to the center of the bottom bracket, this is an 18.5-inch frame, and the wheels are 26 by 1 3/4. The other good news on this bike, considering all the other stuff I'm going to have to do regarding the paint and whatnot, is that tires are in good shape. These are Kenda newer tires that had been put on at some point, and the tread is still very good. The little nubbies sticking out are still there. So don't have to buy, I'm assuming I don't have to buy any inner tubes or rim strips, and the tires you can see are in good shape. So the only thing I'm really going to have to invest in this bike is the decals and the paint, which will still be a considerable amount of money. She is, naked as the day she was born. And here's our shelf with our parts, our wheels, and our fenders. You know, it really doesn't seem to matter how easy you think it's going to be. There's always going to be one or two elements of a teardown that just completely throw a wrench in the works, and obviously that gooseneck was mine on this one. Hesitated to resort to the extreme measure of putting the fork in the vise. I did protect the paint, although I really didn't have to, considering I'm going to be repainting it, but I really wanted to make sure it was secure so that I didn't bend the fork or anything. But that did the trick in the end to get that top nut loose, and then I could sort of bang around on the gooseneck. I will show you here how rusty that bolt for the gooseneck was, and you can sort of see the rust inside there. In fact, the last piece I have not gotten out, which I'm going to have to let soak for a while. You're never going to see this in the camera, but the wedge nut for the gooseneck is totally rusted on the inside down here. So I've loaded it up with penetrating oil, and we'll see. If worse comes to worse, I can take this screw out that holds the top part of the front fender stable to the the underside of the fork, and I maybe can get something in there to pound on that wedge nut the other way. We'll see. That's going to be for next time. Thanks for sticking with me, and I hope to see you next time on Featherstone Bicycles.